Orin 3 was a quiet world, the kind that didn't make it onto most star maps. Tucked into a tranquil corner of the Perseus Arm, it was lush with green valleys and cobalt rivers. Settled 50 years ago by a small group of human families who wanted nothing more than peace, the colony had flourished, not through war or commerce, but through community. The children were its heart. 5 of them, born within the same year, had grown up inseparable. Locals called them the Orbitals, a nickname from their constant movement around the town of Kelvin Ridge. There was Davi, the inquisitive one with a passion for insects and engines. Elira, always sketching starscapes in the dirt. Juno and Mila, twins who could finish each other's sentences and often did. And little Tom, the youngest by 6 months, but the loudest by far. They spent their days racing solar skimmers, skipping stones across the blue glass lake, and building elaborate forts out of scrap panels behind the maintenance bay. Their laughter echoed through the valley like songbirds. Adults smiled when they passed. Even the crusty old traders who rarely spoke stopped to nod at them. None of them had ever seen war. That was the point of Orin 3. Their parents had. Every single one of them had walked away from the Terran Wars with blood on their hands and pain buried deep in their eyes. Mira Voss had led Black Ops raids during the siege of Sigma Prime. Elias Thorne helped design the neural web AIs that leveled half of Cygni's sector. Ronan Cade had captained the TSS Bastion, now a monument in Earth orbit. They had all come here to forget, to bury the past, and to raise their children in a place where death didn't wear a uniform. But war has a long memory, and empires even longer. The Galactic Empire had claimed the local star cluster as part of its unified jurisdiction only months ago. Most thought it would mean higher tariffs and routine inspections. Few believed the Empire would care about an unarmed backwater colony. They were wrong. The Seraph's Gaze, an Empire Dreadnought-class survey vessel, arrived in orbit on the 14th day of Sol Month. No warning. No negotiation. Its AI commander issued a single broadcast. All territories must submit to central integration. Resistance will be interpreted as treason. The people of Orin 3 didn't resist. There was nothing to resist with. No planetary defense grid. No fighter fleet. Just farmers and former warriors turned teachers and builders. But submission wasn't enough. Empire Protocol classified colonies as potential insurgent breeding grounds, and it enforced compliance through fear. At midday, an atmospheric lander touched down in the town square. Black armored enforcers marched out with mechanical precision. At their head, a silver-plated adjudicator drone hovered silently, scanning crowds for threat markers. The children had gathered at the school dome. They were midway through a project on alien pollinators when the alarms began. Juno had asked if it was another drill. Mila had started to say yes. The plasma burst took her mid-sentence. The attack was clinical. Cold. The adjudicator drone declared the children high-risk future subversives due to lineage and location. One by one, the orbitals were marked, isolated, and executed. A message was broadcast planet-wide. Non-compliance has consequences. Let this be the first and last lesson. By the time the parents arrived, there was nothing left but scorch marks and silence. The town square was deserted. The drone gone. The dreadnought already breaking orbit. Mira Voss dropped to her knees beside the ashes of a child she had once sworn to protect. Her scream was not loud. It was quiet. Too quiet. As if all the air had left her lungs and she was waiting for it to come back. It didn't. No parent spoke, not for a long time. They just stood, eyes locked on the ground, hands clenched around ghosts. And then Mira stood. She turned to the others. Her voice was even. Her words simple. They took our children. Now we take everything else. No one disagreed. In that moment, the long peace of Orin 3 died, and something older, colder, and infinitely more dangerous took its place. The sun never rose again for the parents of Orin 3. Mira Voss stood motionless beside the cratered square, the sky dimming above her. The ashes of her daughter, Mila, still clung to the creases in her jacket. Her eyes were dry now, not because she had no tears left, but because grief had given way to something colder. Resolve. Around her, the others gathered silently. Elias Thorne arrived first, his gait uneven, the result of an old shrapnel wound. He held something in his hand, a child's bracelet, fused metal and wire, likely recovered from the wreckage. He didn't speak. He simply laid it on the ground beside Mira. Next came Ronan Cade. His face was blank, his expression that of a man who'd commanded 1,000 men through hell and lived to tell the tale. But now he looked lost. Juno had made him promise to teach her to fly one day. He had told her, when you're older. She never got the chance. Lena and Jor Miles arrived last. The twin snipers were usually inseparable, but today they kept a strange distance from each other. Tom had called them the tall trees, because to him, they were always standing above everyone else, always watching. But they hadn't watched closely enough. No one said it aloud, but they all knew. This wasn't over. Couldn't be. The Galactic Empire had expected submission. What would get was retribution. They gathered that night in an old comms shelter beneath the decommissioned orbital relay, where once Mira and her team had coordinated infiltration strikes across 6 star systems. She hadn't set foot in it for over a decade. The dust was thick. The console lights flickered uncertainly, as if they too were unsure whether to wake. Mira keyed in the old command override. The room hummed. Lights glowed green. She turned to face the others. I buried the soldier in me a long time ago, she said quietly. But they didn't just kill our children. They made examples of them. They recorded it, broadcast it. Her jaw clenched. They knew what they were doing. And now they're going to learn what we are. No one interrupted. Ronan sat down and began loading coordinates into the NAV console. Joran unpacked 2 sealed cases, sniper rigs still polished, still sharp. Lena placed a memory core onto the table. It glowed faintly. Elias opened his toolkit. I've still got prototypes, he murmured. They're not legal anymore, even by Earth standards. But they'll think faster than an Empire War AI. They won't know what hit them, Joran said, voice low. But they'll remember, Mira finished. They weren't just a group of angry parents. These were the ghosts the Empire had once feared. The legends that had gone quiet. They had retired, yes. But they hadn't forgotten how to wage war. They just never thought they'd have to do it again. For their children. Each had left behind weapons, tech, and tools of a darker era. Now, they were dusting it all off. They started with the ship. Buried beneath the maintenance fields was the Vengeance Curve, a stealth corvette Ronan had built as a failsafe during his last tour. It had no registry, no ID codes. It didn't appear on any local manifests. As far as the galaxy was concerned, it didn't exist. Now it was their sword. They outfitted it over the course of 3 days. Refitted the cloaking array. Replaced the railgun turrets with plasma lances. Reprogrammed the targeting AI to use Elias's old heuristics. By the 4th day, it was ready. They packed light, armor, weapons, encrypted files, the few keepsakes that hadn't been burned. None of them said goodbye to Orin 3. There was no one left to say goodbye to. On the morning of launch, Mira stood before the graves. The names carved into metal plates, stuck into soil too soft to hold memory. She whispered each name. Mila, Juno, Davi, Elira, Tom. Then she whispered one more. Voss. The soldier was back. As the Vengeance Curve rose into orbit, its signal mast and its signature silent, 5 figures stood on the bridge. Not as parents anymore, but as executioners. They didn't leave rage behind. They brought it with them, refined, aimed, and sharpened. The Empire would never see them coming. The Vengeance Curve was a shadow between stars. Invisible to standard sensors, silent as death, it glided through the darkness toward its first target, Outpost Theta 9, an Empire listening station nestled inside a hollowed-out asteroid in the Nvar Belt. Officially, Theta 9 was a communication relay. Unofficially, it was the node that relayed the kill order to the Seraph's gaze, the dreadnought responsible for the slaughter on Orin 3. It was also unguarded. The Empire, confident in its dominion, didn't post defenses around relay stations. Why bother? No one had challenged them in decades. That changed in 12 seconds. The Vengeance Curve decloaked a kilometer out. Lena and Jor Miles ejected from the hull in stealth suits, rifles magnetized to their backs. They breached the outpost's comm array silently, bypassing AI security with old Terran military overrides. Codes so ancient the Empire's systems didn't even recognize them as threats. When the lights flickered inside Theta 9, it was already too late. The Miles siblings moved through the corridors like ghosts, shooting only when necessary, never missing. Within 5 minutes, the station's personnel, 13 in all, were dead or disabled. The last, a comms officer, was found hiding in the supply bay. Mira interrogated him herself. They were children, she said, crouching before him, her tone calm, like she was asking for the time. The officer stammered. The directive came from Sector Command. We just relayed it. I didn't know they were kids. Mira didn't blink. They were names. They were futures. You turned them into warnings. Then she stood, nodded to Jorin, and walked away. The officer never spoke again. Elias and Ronan stayed behind to strip the outpost's databanks. What they found made the blood in their veins turn to ice. The execution order for Orin 3 hadn't come from some mid-tier bureaucrat. It was part of Directive S9, a sweeping Empire policy targeting fringe human colonies under the assumption they might foment generational rebellion. Children were classified as pre-combatant liabilities. The deaths were intentional, systemic, and Orin 3 was not the first. There were others. Colonies where non-compliance had led to forced sterilizations, disappearances, mass graves. They downloaded everything. Ronan set charges. By the time Theta 9 exploded in a flare of blue fire, the vengeance curve was gone. They hit 3 more targets over the next 9 days. A munitions depot on Threxel, an AI command node near the Tanari Drift, and a forward logistics hub on Sinar Prime. Each mission was surgical, swift, relentless. Mira led each operation personally. She moved like she had never stopped fighting. But there was something different about her now. A silence in her eyes. Her anger wasn't loud. It was calculated. Precision-cut vengeance. Elias deployed his reprogrammed combat drones during the Sindar Prime assault. The machines moved like liquid metal, adaptive and ruthless. One impaled an officer who tried to surrender. Elias didn't call it back. "They're learning," he murmured. "Just like us." By the 3rd week, the Empire began to take notice. Reports spoke of a rogue cell of ex-Terran commandos. The words revenants and wraiths started circulating on military channels. The term, the Five, appeared in intercepted messages. But even as the Empire tried to trace them, the parent stayed ahead, erasing logs, jamming scans, warping between sectors faster than the AI predictors could track. And then they found it. The Seraph's Gaze. The dreadnought had returned to a high-orbit dry dock near the gas giant Koroth. Repairs. Refueling. Minimal crew. Ronan looked at the tactical readout and smiled. They left the doors open. That night, cloaked in the shadow of the planet, the vengeance curve slipped into the upper atmosphere. Ronan threaded the ship through gas clouds and calm static, bypassing every automated scanner. They breached the dreadnought's maintenance port and walked in. Inside, it was quiet. The automated AI systems pulsed softly in the dark, unaware of the retribution that had just stepped on board. They moved floor by floor, disabling systems, locking down escape pods, cutting off power to all weapons and communication nodes. Finally, they reached the command deck. The Imperial captain was waiting. Middle-aged, polished, smug. "You must be the ghosts," he said, folding his arms. "You think this changes anything?" Mira raised her weapon. "You murdered 5 children." He scoffed. "They were future rebels. You should have thanked me." She didn't answer. She just pulled the trigger. The Empire had made a mistake. They had taught the parents of Orin 3 that peace was fragile. Now they would teach the Empire what wrath looked like. The Seraph's Gaze burned behind them, a slow, silent wreck in orbit over Koroth. Its hull had been cracked open by internal detonations, its crew either dead or gone. The Empire would write it off as a system malfunction, another technical failure. They would never admit it had been taken by 5 humans with nothing left to lose. Mira stood on the command bridge of the vengeance curve, silent. Before her, The stars stretched wide, cold, ancient, and indifferent. Behind her, the others worked methodically. Ronan rerouted the ship's reactor cores into high-energy broadcast mode. Elias fed the decrypted files into the mainframe, sifting through war crimes buried in sterile language and false neutrality. Lena and Joran monitored for incoming signals. So far, nothing. The Empire didn't even know the gaze was gone. They're going to feel it now, Ronan said quietly. No, Mira replied. They're going to see it. She stepped forward and activated the broadcast. A pulse of light burst from the ship, tight-beamed toward every major relay station in the sector. Within minutes, it would hit over 30 systems. The message was short and impossible to ignore. First came the images, 5 children, laughing, playing, running beneath the silver grass trees of Orin 3. Davi with oil-stained fingers holding up a broken drone. Juno and Mila skipping stones. Elira with her paint-covered hands. Tom dancing clumsily in a festival mask. Then silence. Then the execution footage. Not the edited Empire propaganda, but the raw footage Elias had pulled from the Seraph itself. Camera angles, sound feeds, targeting data. The emotionless voice of the adjudicator drone delivering the death sentence. Then came Myra's voice. We gave you peace. You gave us pain. From this moment forward, there is no mercy, no negotiations, no warnings. We are the parents of Orin 3. We are the last promise our children ever heard. And now, we make good on that promise. Remember our names, and remember theirs. The screen faded to black, and the galaxy erupted. Within hours, human colonies across 4 sectors rebelled. Some had long suspected the Empire's quiet brutality. Others had seen friends and families disappear, but feared to speak. Now, they had proof. Now they had a spark. The 5 had become more than fugitives. They were symbols. The Vengeance Curve became the flagship of a new resistance. Old allies emerged from hiding. Rogue captains, smuggler lords, AI war machines buried under ceasefire codes. The galaxy had changed overnight, but the 5 weren't done. Their final target was deeper in Imperial space. The Vault, a secure data citadel orbiting the red dwarf Nalthus. It was there that Directive S9 had been conceived, written, and authorized. It wasn't enough to kill soldiers anymore. They needed to kill the idea that human lives, especially young lives, were expendable. The assault was suicidal. The Vault had orbital shields, defensive drones, and its own destroyer escort, but also had a flaw. It had been built with human tech. Terran tech. Elias had helped design the base architecture 20 years ago. He never forgot how to break it. They slipped through the firewall like knives through silk, every false credential and biometric bypass unlocking doors no Empire engineer thought vulnerable. The Resistance created a diversion in orbit, drawing away half the destroyers. Mira led the strike team in. Inside, they moved through corridors with military grace. Every footstep had purpose. Every shot found its mark. They reached the central AI core, a chamber of light and mirrors, where the Empire's decision-makers had turned genocide into policy. Ronan uploaded the viral package. Elias activated the purge. Every directive, every death order, every atrocity file was broadcast to the quadrant in real time. Billions watched the truth. Billions chose sides. When the dust settled, the vault burned. The 5 didn't wait to see the aftermath. They vanished back into the dark. Some say they died in the final assault. Others claim they still roam the outer sectors, striking down those who were the Empire's sigil. What is known, what cannot be erased, is that the Empire changed after Orin 3. It lost control of half its frontier worlds. It never fully recovered, and every child born in those systems grew up learning 5 names. Not as soldiers, as parents.